Szanowni Państwo, na początek Gdybyśmy
Had we found ourselves in this part of the camp 81 years ago, we would have seen hundreds of Roma families living in the shadows of the crematorium chimneys, terrified, often starving, tortured, but alive. Had we come here just one day later, on the 3rd of August 1944, we would not have met a single Roma. The crematorium chimneys would still have been smoking. Tonight marks 82 years since the day and the night during which, in the Auschwitz-Birkenau concentration camp on whose grounds we now stand, more than 4,300 Roma and Sinti were murdered, men and women who put up heroic resistance. All in all, the German Nazi concentration camps claimed 11 million human lives. I extend my warmest welcome to the survivors, those who after so many years and despite their age have come here to bear witness. May the testimony stand as a warning so that Auschwitz may never happen again. They truly deserve our applause. They are here so that we shall not forget. They are here so that the memory should not be lost of the 500,000 Roman Sinti who were murdered in Nazi-occupied Europe. I very warmly welcome the second generation, the children of those who lived through the tragedy of the extermination visited upon the nations during the Second World War. And although in the face of such a monstrous tragedy we are all equal, allow me, here on this day, to greet with particular warmth the representatives of the second generation of Roma and Sinti. They carry forward the words, "We remember them so that we do not forget who we are as human beings." This memory is guarded by the Republic of Poland. Its authorities I would like to welcome here with due respect according to the rank and dignity of their office. I would like to bow my head before the Deputy Marshal, the same of the Republic of Poland, who represents here the Polish nation. Let me remind you that the Polish Sejm proclaimed the 2nd of August as a day of remembrance as long as 2011. This memory is upheld by Europe. This memory is upheld by Europe. Europe is represented here, both its institutions and its citizens are represented by representatives who have come here from at least 24 countries. I welcome with equal respect according to the rank and dignity of their office on this day, the European Day of Remembrance of the Roman Sinti. Genocide. It was under that name 11 years ago that the European Parliament resolved that this day should be remembered. Let us keep this memory. We gathered here beneath this monument to the murdered Roma and Sinti. We would like to thank the organizers for this opportunity to commemorate them, the Association of Roma in Poland and the Central Council of German Sinti and Roma, and the co-organizers, the Auschwitz-Birkenau State Museum and the Center for Roma History and Culture. Now the time has come for the messages that make it clear why this memory is so important. Let us give the floor to the organizers, who at the same time are representatives of the second generation. Let us listen with our deepest attention to the survivors themselves, who are the very substance of this memory. And finally, let us listen to those whom we entrust with this memory, the representatives of international and national institutions who take care that Auschwitz never comes here. It never trots towards us, never comes shuffling in little steps, so that whatever happened here shall never happen again. May I invite Mr. Roman Kwiatkowski, the president of the Association of Roma in Poland, a representative of the second generation, a son of the survivor who managed to escape from the ghetto in Kielce. Ladies and gentlemen, dear survivors, representatives of the national, regional and local authorities, members of the diplomatic corps, representatives of churches and religious communities, distinguished guests. We gather here today in this place, in a place that will forever remain a symbol of hatred, contempt and genocide. Auschwitz-Birkenau is a place unlike any other. Above all, it is a place of remembrance for the Roman Sinti, whom we commemorate today. But it is also a place of remembrance for the Jewish people, for Poles, and for members of many other nations and groups who fell victim to the German Nazi terror. Today marks the anniversary. On the night of the 2nd and 3rd of August 1944, when the Germans liquidated the so-called Zigeuner Lager, the Roman Sinti family camp at Auschwitz-Birkenau. That night, more than 4,300 women, men, elderly people were murdered. Children too. And this year marks the 15th anniversary of the decision taken by the Polish Sejm of the Republic of Poland to designate the 2nd of August as the Day of Remembrance of the Roman Sinti Holocaust. 4 years later, in 2015, the European Parliament proclaimed the 2nd of August the European Roma Holocaust Memorial Day, thus recognizing the memory of Roma victims as an integral part of Europe's remembrance of the Second World War and the victims of Nazism. It was an important acknowledgement of the history of Roma victims, but also a commitment on the part of the Polish state to preserve the memory of one of the most overlooked tragedies of the Second World War. Today, we stand before the memory. We do so with humility, respect, and a profound sense of responsibility. Today's ceremony is not only a tribute to the victims of Auschwitz-Birkenau, it is also a tribute to all Roma victims of Nazi persecution across Europe. A tribute to those who were imprisoned in ghettos, to those who were murdered in mass executions, a tribute to those who perished in concentration camps and extermination camps. It is estimated that during World War II, around 500,000 people, our Roman Sinti, lost their lives. Behind every one of those numbers stands a human being. There is a history. There is a human being, a story. And for that reason, our memory must not be about one place or one day. It is our duty to remember. It is also our duty to speak the truth. Among the darkest chapters of this history were the pseudo-medical experiments conducted by Dr. Joseph Mengele on Roma children, especially on twins. That is why it is so important that we have here with us young people. When we look at them, it is very hard not to think of those other children, the children that were robbed of their future. When we look at them, when we look at the children, we also see something else. It was around 80 years ago that the Nazis decided to annihilate the Roma people completely. The Nazis wanted future generations never to be born. Today, those future generations stand among us. They are here, they are learning, they are dreaming, and they are the most beautiful proof that despite this unimaginable tragedy, our people survived. They are the triumph of life over hatred, of remembrance over oblivion. Yet, remembrance cannot exist without education. Education keeps history alive. Education turns history into a warning for future generations. That is why so important is the exhibition entitled The Extermination of the European Roma in Block 13 of the Auschwitz-Birkenau State Museum. This year marks the 25th anniversary of its opening. The exhibition is the result of many, many years of work. It took a lot of determination and commitment by countless individuals to make it happen. It exists because people believe that the history of the Roma must be told fully. But an exhibition must not remain but an artifact. It must not be only a testimony to the past. It is not enough for it only to exist. It must remain alive. It must be an integral part of the museum's educational efforts. It must be accessible to all those who want to visit it. Because remembrance that is beyond people's reach gradually fades, blurs, and the memory of the victims must never be silent. History does not end within the walls of museums or textbooks. History continues to ask questions, difficult questions even today. Once again, Europe is experiencing war. It is every day that we see the suffering of civilians. People are dying, entire families are dying. Roma are among them, although their suffering oftentimes remains unseen. At the same time, even in times of peace, far too many Roma continue to face discrimination across Europe. Barriers to education are still there. Barriers to healthcare are still there. The same is true of employment. There are barriers to a life of dignity. And this tells us that our common task remains unfinished. We, Sinti and Roma, are not asking for any special treatment. We are not asking for any new rights. Our rights are already there. They have been enshrined in the constitutions of our respective countries. They are guaranteed by legal acts. They are protected by European human rights standards. And that is why we demand that they are fully respected, not merely in declarations, but above all, in everyday life. For wherever equality before the law is upheld, there is no room for discrimination, no place for exclusion. There is no room for hatred.
To je Goskoń. Dzisiaj
Today, we stand on this ground that was soaked with the blood of our loved ones. Here, we pay tribute to all those who were murdered. At the same time, we make a pledge to future generations that remembrance will endure, that education shall be courageous, that the truth is going to be told in full, and that the dignity of human being will always be equal of every human being. We remember so that we do not forget. Even more importantly, we remember so that we may build a future founded on truth, on responsibility, on mutual respect, and on the equal dignity of every human being. Let our shared commitment be this, that never again any child, regardless of their origin, become a victim of hatred, violence, or inhuman experimentation. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I would like to give the floor to Mr. Romani Rosa, the chairman of the Central Council of German Sinti and Roma, a representative of the second generation whose grandparents were prisoners of Auschwitz and Ravensbrück, and whose uncle, Vincent Rosa, was a survivor of the Auschwitz extermination camp, who also survived medical experiments at the Natzweiler concentration camp. I would like to welcome the representatives of the President of the Republic of Poland. I welcome Mr. Berendt. I also would like to welcome Mr. Flak, and I welcome Mr. Roman Kwiatkowski on behalf of all this Vice President. I also would like to welcome the State Secretary in the German Federal Government's Commission against the so-called anti-Gypsy, Mr. Brandt. I also would like to welcome the Ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany, Mr. Eichhorn. I also would like to welcome Director Cywiński, and I thank Mr. Cywiński for his vital support for this commemoration today. Honorable Minister Bera Madai, Honorable Madam President Bayer. Ladies and gentlemen, all of us who have gathered here today understand the significance of this place, which has become a synonym for the greatest crime in the history of humankind. In the former German extermination camp of Auschwitz, well over 1 million people were murdered. All of that was meticulously planned in a bureaucratic style at a desk, deported in cattle wagons, suffocated in the gas chambers, burnt on an industrial scale in the crematoria. On the night from the 2nd into the 3rd of August 1944, on the orders of the Reich Security Main Office, the SS murdered the last remaining 4,300 Sinti and Roma still alive in this extermination camp, despite their fierce resistance. Those were overwhelmingly children, women, and the elderly. Just how profoundly Auschwitz stands for the Holocaust. A crime without parallel in human history is made clear by Herbert Adler, a survivor from our minority, in his account. His 3 sisters, Ursula, age 6, Gertrude, aged 8, and Gisela, age 17, together with his mother, were murdered by the SS in the gas chambers of Auschwitz on the night from the 2nd to the 3rd of August 1944. And their bodies were burnt to ashes. Today, we commemorate all those Sinti and Roma who were killed here in Auschwitz. We also remember 500,000 Sinti and Roma who were murdered during the Holocaust across Europe, occupied by Nazis. In 2015, the European Parliament declared the 2nd of August as the official European Holocaust Memorial Day for Sinti and Roma. And that's also on behalf of the victims. I would like to thank the Democratic Parliament, European Parliament, for that historic and very important gesture. After the end of the Second World War, and once the breach of civilization committed by Nazi Germany, the Community of Nations, through the founding of the United Nations and its charter, adopted international law. It was the response of humanity to Auschwitz. Ladies and gentlemen, when I look at the world today, I lack words to express my despair that we, as human beings, we have learned nothing from history. Today, once again, international law is being violated in Ukraine, in the Middle East, and in many other places all around the world. Pope Leo XIV, in the face of the wars in Ukraine and in the Middle East, spoke about the disgrace of humanity. He said that it was deeply shameful that today the law of the strongest, the might principle prevails. And during his visit to Madrid a few weeks ago, Pope thanked the Spanish government for its faithful adherence to international law. As early as in 2013, his predecessor, Pope Francis, gave powerful voice to this being at Lampedusa. Let me quote his words. He said, "The globalization of indifference has deprived us of the ability to weep." Those words still carry meaning. They're still valid. The voice of the Pope is a voice of conscience. The Pope reminds us, the international community, and to the decision makers, that international law and the dignity of all people are matters that are non-negotiable. Our minority has been observing with horror the resurgence of anti-Gypsyism in Germany, but also in other European countries. And this phenomenon is not taking place in a vacuum. And across all over Europe, we are witnessing electoral successes of far-right and nationalist parties that are once again making hatred and incitement socially acceptable. And from the experience of our own history, we know it was always minorities who were treated as scapegoats. Helmut Schmidt in 1982 recognized the Holocaust of Sinti and Roma, and this should not stay merely a formal act of acknowledgement. The threatening situation of our minority is also recorded in many different incidents that speak of the presence of the so-called anti-Gypsyism. But now we see that it's been demonstrated not only by the far-right parties, but also we see it in the activities of the state institutions, such as the activities of the police authorities in Lower Saxony, which are once again criminalizing and registering the members of our minority on the basis of the concept of race coined by the Nazis. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot counteract this phenomenon only by means of criminal law. We need to do a lot of prevention work through education and awareness. It is a scandal that Europe's largest minority, numbering from 10 to 12 million people, doesn't actually appear in the school textbooks in many countries. The Council of Europe has been pointing out the failures in teaching the history of the Sinti and Roma since as early as 2020. And that is why we, as the Central Council, together with the Ministers of Education of the German federal states, we have adopted a recommendation to speak of the history, but also about the present day of this minority in school textbooks, and to put that permanently in school curricula. Today, distinguished Madam President Bayer, I would like to submit an appeal with which we call upon the members of the Council of Europe and the European Union to introduce such educational activities that will present the many centuries of history of the Sinti and Roma in their home countries, and also to draw attention to their contributions to art, music and culture. And in doing so, Europe shall be able to make its contribution in preventing the growing threats of anti-Gypsyism that is also the result of the lack of knowledge about the victims in Auschwitz. And also would like to mention the following. Today, together with us, we have, and soon, the plenipotentiary of the federal government of Germany, Mr. Brandt, is going to speak. Well, anti-Gypsyism was a basis for many centuries of persecution. We, on so many occasions, were treated as scapegoats, and this phenomenon needs to be monitored and researched in many European countries, and it should also be seriously treated at the universities. Mr. Brandt, I would like to thank you. You are a Secretary of State in the federal government, and I understand that indeed you are acting for the benefit of these minorities. And I would like to avail of this opportunity. Well, we owe so much to Heidelberg. Heidelberg was the first city to establish this type of institute. And that's why I'm very proud that Mayor Janssen of Heidelberg is here with us today as well. And I would like to thank her. I also would like to thank the town of the city of Heidelberg and the university. Thank you very much. Madam Bayer, who is here with us today, we are very grateful for taking up this appeal. I'm very grateful for this, and Mr. Kwiatkowski, I'm also very grateful too, because the European Parliament that in 2015 announced on the 2nd of August the day of the Holocaust of Roma and Sinti, pronounced it as the days of remembrance. And for 2 or 3 years now, the representatives of the European Parliament are taking part in these ceremonies, and that is also important.
Vielen Dank, ich danke Ihnen.
I would like to invite Mr. Dieter Flack, a survivor from Germany.
Okay.
Aber es wird schon gehen.
Meine sehr verehrten Damen und Herren, es ist für mich eine außerordentliche Ehre, dass ich heute
It is a particular honor for me that today, on the European Holocaust Memorial Day for Sinti and Roma, I may once again speak to you as a representative of our survivors. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Here, in this former section of the camp, I wish to remember my relatives. Please pardon my anxiety. I would like to remember my relatives who were murdered in the gas chambers of Auschwitz-Birkenau. At the same time, I would like to give a warning. As a survivor of the genocide, I would like to give you a warning against the rise of the right-wing extremism, anti-Gypsyism and anti-Semitism, against the brutalization of our societies. In Germany alone, hatred and incitement against our minorities continue to grow. This frightens me, not so much for my own life, but for the lives of my children and grandchildren, and above all, for the survival of our democracy, the survival of democracy in Germany and in Europe. I was born at the end of August 1940. I was the youngest of 5 children. Together with our parents, we lived in Upper Silesia. My grandparents traveled with a touring theatre company and brought people a little joy with their plays in those difficult times. In 1942, my uncle, my grandmother, my aunt, and her 8 children were arrested by the police. It happened in Breslau. They were taken away. Only many years later did research by the Documentation Cultural Center of Germany, Sinti and Roma, reveal that years later they were transported from Austria to Auschwitz-Birkenau. There, the 4 boys were murdered first, and shortly afterwards my grandmother, my aunt, and her 4 daughters. The youngest of them, were Laura Valgunde, was only 19 months old. When my mother learned of these arrests, when she learned that my grandparents were arrested, it was February 1943, that we fled. We escaped on a cattle wagon. We fled the persecution. My father and my eldest brother had already been forced into the Wehrmacht, forced to serve in the army. Of course, I cannot remember this myself. I was only 2.5 years old. But I remember stories saying that we continued to be on the road for a long time. We were in flight for a long time. We hid most in forests. And we lived in a great fear of being discovered. By way of Czechoslovakia, Austria, and Bavaria, we reached Switzerland. Finally, my mother ended up close to Freising. There she had to work, she performed forced labor, and later we were liberated by the Americans. After the war, we settled in Deggendorf. My father died a few months after his return. My mother tried to support us by trading. She died a few years later. So, siblings got separated. We were taken in by various relatives. So we lost our parents, but also we lost the bond that held our family together, the bond that held the siblings together. My mother never spoke to us about the persecution. She wanted to protect us. She wanted to protect her children. Only at the age of 16, maybe 17, did I learn the whole truth. I experienced some exclusion after the war. However, the discrimination against our minority had not ceased. Our family never received any compensation for the fact that we lost so many loved ones, our relatives. for all this persecution. I'm sorry, you can hear my voice break, but these things are quite emotional for me. Thank you very much for the support. For a long time, I regretted the fact that my access to education was difficult for me as a Sinto. I wanted to learn more, and I wanted to stay in education longer. That is why I would like to make this appeal. Take every opportunity to further your education, learn languages, come to know other countries and other cultures. This helps to break down prejudice and to create this atmosphere of tolerance and acceptance. When you do that, you will know what has happened, and you will be able to build this atmosphere of mutual respect. And we are here at this place where the biggest crime in humanity was conducted. So, an appeal. I would like the history of Sinti and Roma to be placed in the school curriculum, in the history curriculum in Europe. Also, I would like the information about our minorities to be included. If things do not change, this slogan, or rather this sentence, never again, will always be just a slogan, an empty slogan. Thank you very much. May I warmly invite Mr. Rudolf Murka, the descendant of a survivor of the extermination from the Czech Republic. We'll hear the voice of the second generation. Let me remind you that we write second generation with capital letters to underline a shared experience rather than the mere sequence of generations, sir.
Lačadibes. Vážení potomci, vážené dámy,
distinguished descendants, ladies and gentlemen, your excellencies. Today we stand in a place where even silence cries out in pain. Humanity's cruelest place. The extermination and concentration camp Auschwitz-Birkenau. 60 years ago I came to this place for the first time. I came here with my father. And it has been 60 long years since, and yet I remember the day as if it were yesterday. That night my father walked the camp all night long while we, his children, slept. He walked among the barracks and the barbed wire of the former camp. Once more, after all these years, passing through the places where he had lost his entire family. In the morning I saw my father's reddened eyes, the eyes that had wept the whole night. His number was Z4578. It was tattooed on his forearm. To me, a boy of 7 at the time, it was only a number. It was just a drawing. I understood its real meaning only years later. Essentially, it was a number assigned to the queue for the guest chambers. There, my father's entire family perished. and most of my mother's family with them. I remember when I was here with my father for the last time. My father was already sick at that time. He was dragging an oxygen bottle behind him. When he came here, I was courageous enough to ask him a question. When did you see your family the last time? And he answered, it was here. And we were putting these timber barracks there in the back. It started raining, so we went there, took shelter there, and my mother told me, took off these wet clothes, I'll give you my flannel shirt. I took off these wet, dirty rags, I put on her shirt. Half an hour later, a roll call was called, and all men had to leave. We had to disrobe. All the rest of the day, throughout the night, we would stand outside until such time as a truck arrived and clogs and striped uniforms arrived. Then we took these heavy empty carts to the main camp. It was the last day when I saw my family, said he. And I admired my father. Even after all he survived and experienced, after death marches, all these camps, he managed to survive here, where he had seen his family for the last time when he was only 17. And he lived through all this pain here, and still he was able to tell the story of his family to us, his children. When I look ahead, I see the descendants whose family experienced a similar fate, a fate similar to those of my father and my mother's family. Roma and Sinti from a number of different countries were imprisoned at the protectorate of Czechoslovakia, in Chodonin, Letopisku, in many camps, in many centers, and then they were all transported here to Auschwitz-Birkenau. And there was this letter, return undesired. This is what it said. So our parents who survived the hell of concentration camps are no longer with us, but they were strong and courageous. It is thanks to their strength that we, their children, are still here. A huge responsibility rests on us. This responsibility to make sure that their memory is never lost, so that it's passed on, so that we educate next generations about the Roma and Sinti Holocaust. We, their children and next generations, we need to act as their voice. This voice that was supposed to be silenced here. And a thank you to Mr. Romani Rosa, to Mr. Kwiatkowski, and to a number of international institutions represented here who support the knowledge about the Roma Holocaust so that it's never forgotten. Thank you.
I also would like, and we also are very grateful for your words. And to read the message of the President of the Republic of Poland, I will ask Professor Grzegorz Berend, Ambassador and Special Representative of the President of the Republic of Poland on such important matters as historical diplomacy. Over to you, sir. The President of the Republic of Poland, Karol Nawrocki, Warsaw, the 2nd of August, 2026. Dear participants and conveners of the Remembrance Day of Sinti and Roma and of the 82nd anniversary of the liquidation of Zigeuner Lager, concentration lager Auschwitz-Birkenau. Ladies and gentlemen, dear survivors, dear representatives of the second generation, The historic cataclysm of the Second World War left deep and still unhealed wounds in the historical consciousness of the peoples and nations that suffered from German imperial aggression and racial hatred, which in the Third Reich were raised to the rank of official state ideology. A particular and indelible mark of pain and humiliation is borne in the hearts by Jews who hold the tragedy of the Shoah in their memory, and by Roma and Sinti mourning the victims of the Paraimos, that is, of the attempt of the total extermination of that special ethnic group, unique ethnic group, which for centuries has been shaping the social and cultural landscape of Europe. The immensity of the crimes and destruction at the hands of the Nazi invaders also marked the memory and identity of Poles. It was not only the death of nearly 6 million citizens of the Republic of Poland and of the citizens, destruction of the citizens of the Republic of Poland, planned and destruction on a scale never seen before. It was also the ghettos created on our soil, districts that were turned into overcrowded prisons, and the network of German concentration camps and extermination camps. And it was in Poland, a shared home inhabited by the representatives of different races, cultures, religions, and languages. It was in Poland that the criminally pragmatic German invaders established their greatest factories of death, places in which thousands of men, women, and children, among them Roma and Sinti, taken away from Poland and from many other countries, they were tormented, humiliated, and killed. They were treated as subhumans who were obstructing the German master race by their mere existence. The Roma and Sinti were perishing in great numbers in the extermination camps at Chełmno and Nerim and Treblinka and in other German camps. However, the principal symbol of the extermination became Konzentrationslager Auschwitz-Birkenau. It was here in February 1943 that in one of the sectors they create the special Zigeunerlager. And from March 1943 to June 1944, more than 22,000 Roma and Sinti were confined in this place, of whom approximately 21,000 died. The prisoners endured inhuman torture, hunger, cold, and drastically poor conditions of existence, and as many as half of those imprisoned died as a result of cold and disease, and some children included fell victim to the pseudo-medical experiments of a criminal in a doctor's coat by Joseph Mengele. And on the night from the 2nd into the 3rd of August 1944, fearing the approaching front, the Germans carried out the liquidation of the so-called gypsy camp. The liquidation meant the hurried killing in the gas chambers of almost 4,300 people. The bodies of the murdered were burned in the burning pits beside crematorium number 5. This, however, was not the end of the martyrdom of the Roma and Sinti in Konzentrationslager Auschwitz-Birkenau. At the end of September 1944, the Germans killed in the gas chambers 200 Sinti children deported here from the Konzentrationslager Buchenwald. And then in October 1944, 2,000 people brought here from other camps were killed, among them many Roma and Sinti, who had already been imprisoned early in KL Auschwitz-Birkenau. According to researchers, in the Third Reich and in the territories occupied by German forces, close to half of the Romani population was killed. On the 82nd anniversary of the greatest mass murder of the prisoners of the Zigeunerlager, I bow my head in tribute to the Roma and Sinti who suffered and died in this cruel place. I do so in the name of the Republic of Poland and in the name of all of my compatriots. We join you in prayer for those who were murdered. And once again, with all my might, I condemn the evil that is every variety of Nazism and chauvinism. Neither today nor in the future, not in any civilized society, we cannot have place, and there shall not be place for slogans or publications, artistic expressions, and there is no place for organizations that spread hatred or on ethnic or racial grounds. May the memory of their primers remain a warning to generations to come. To the Roma communities in Poland and throughout the world, I wish every prosperity, eternal remembrance and honor to the prisoners murdered in the Zigeunerlager. May hatred and wars between nations vanish forever. Karol Nawrocki, President of the Republic of Poland. Thank you, Ambassador, Your Excellency, and please pass on our words of gratitude to the President of the Republic of Poland. And I would like to invite Mr. Michael Brandt, Parliamentary State Secretary at the Federal Ministry of Education, Family, Senior Citizens, Women and Youth of the Federal Republic of Germany, and at the same time Federal Government Commissioner for Combating Anti-Gypsyism and for the Life of Sinti and Roma in Germany. The tragedy of the present day is that more than 80 years after the Holocaust of the Roma and Sinti, anti-Gypsyism as a phenomenon still exists.
Sehr geehrte Überlebende und Angehörige,
distinguished survivors and relatives of the victims, Madam President of the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe, Madame Berroa-Madej, Madam President of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, my colleague Ms. Bayer, Secretary of State Mr. Bartoszewski, Chairman of the Central Council of German Sinti and Roma, dear Mr. Rose. Auschwitz is not anonymous. Your grandparents were here in this block, and here they lost their lives. Chairman, or rather President of the Association of Roma, Mr. Kwiatkowski, Dr. Cywiński, dear representatives of the Sinti and Roma, dear young people and young adults from all across Europe, ladies and gentlemen. Here, in this place, it is always very hard to find the right words because of the burden of history, and the terror is so huge. All the more, I feel particular responsibility when I speak here as a representative of the German government. Today we remember people who are living their regular lives. They had all their futures ahead of them, and yet they were persecuted by the terror regime of the National Socialists. They were interned and tortured and murdered right here. We do not know the fate of every single person, but we do not forget a single victim. Not one single human being lost here will be forgotten. The people so brutally murdered here in other places lived on in the families. They live on in our shared remembrance. Many children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren are here at Auschwitz-Birkenau. They are here today to remember their relatives. We cannot truly comprehend your grief and your pain, but we want you to know that we commiserate with you as far as anyone can who does not have to mourn the fate that your families have to mourn. As a representative of the federal government, I bow before the victims and before the families and their descendants. The suffering did not end with the Nazi terror, nor did it end with the liberation of the survivors. The trauma lives on in memories and fears and even in the silence of the survivors. The survivor Chaya Stoika described it in these words. I, Chaya, say Auschwitz is still alive. It lives and breathes in me today. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this inhumane barbarity left deep marks on the generations that followed as well. Many Holocaust survivors were unable for a long time to talk about this terror. Many still cannot do so. Thank you to Mr. Flagg because he gave us a gift when he spoke to us. Some never spoke of the horror that they had been through or they survived. It is all the more significant for us that all those people found it within themselves to speak about their most painful memories, and it took courage to do so. Mostly what they did is they shared it with young people in Europe. Every one of them helped to build this wall against oblivion in open and democratic societies. And we cherish our memory, or rather, we help to ensure that the memory of this terrible cruelty is still there. Fewer and fewer survivors are still able to bear direct witness today, but the generation of survivors made sure that the memory will not fade once the survivors are no longer with us. It was this unfathomable genocide of the Sinti and Roma of Europe. It did not begin at the gates of Auschwitz. Like the systematic murder of the Jews in Europe, it had a long prelude. There was prejudice and denigration and discrimination, hatred, exclusion, indifference. All of it helped to turn people into a community of others, into a group of people who did not belong, and then those others were turned into a threat. They were denied the right to be a part of society. They were no longer allowed to live together. From there, the road led directly to them being stripped of their rights, expropriated, persecuted, deported, and then systematically murdered. Auschwitz-Birkenau shows us the truth, and we see those things with clarity and starkness, this truth that cannot be overlooked and denied. Namely, we see where it all leads to when human beings are denied their humanity, their human dignity. We see it here. We can trace it. We can look and listen to countless testimonies of survivors in court proceedings and documentation. So today, in the future, we must repeat never again. The most important article of German Basic Law of May the 23rd, 1949 is very expressly worded, and there we read, conscious of the responsibility before God and man. The wording is, human dignity is inviolable. And further we read, to respect and protect it shall be the duty of all state authority. Never again, not today, not tomorrow, not the day after. Never again can we accept that racism and discrimination would spread through our society once more, like cancer. We must and we shall confront it. We will put all of our efforts and energy to prevent it. We fight against anti-Gypsyism and anti-Semitism, every other form of racism and exclusion. History teaches us where it all leads, where the majority remains silent, when the majority becomes the silent majority, when they look away. Elie Wiesel, a writer and a survivor, wrote, "The opposite of love is not hate, but indifference." Germany bears historical responsibility for the genocide of the Sinti and Roma in Europe. Democratic Germany cannot and will not evade that historical responsibility. We face that responsibility today and tomorrow, because after the terrible genocide, the discrimination of Sinti and Roma continued in many places. The German federal government chose to run an independent process of reckoning. A special commission was established. Yes, in this we are simply far too late. But finally, we are treating this open wound so that one day it may be healed, and we try to draw conclusions for the here and now. We act against the discrimination and exclusion that exists. We act for equal rights and equal dignity, equal opportunities everywhere. We owe it to the victims, to the survivors, and to the descendants of the victims of this terrible crime against humanity. In the face of history and this indefinitely heavy burden of history, it is so important today that jointly with Sinti and Roma we open a new and short chapter, so that we can give a good example and invite others in and take them with us on a common journey into the future. I'm happy to see young people and young adults from many European countries to face this situation, to engage with remembrance, to draw from it conclusions for the present, for the future. You are here today. You keep remembrance. You keep memory alive. You are trying jointly to build a better future. That gives hope. Thank you.
Wahr ist, die Stimmen der Überlebenden.
There are fewer and fewer survivors, and therefore responsibility of the living is becoming ever more important. It is up to us of whether we will draw conclusions for the future and maintain the memory, especially now, at the time when minorities are under attack yet again and have become targets, when hatred and lies are becoming acceptable. And this is done in a very deliberate fashion. It is up to all of us. We cannot allow for the today's minority to live in hiding. We cannot allow for the lies to circulate all around us, and the famous words say, think of your thoughts, they may become words. Words may become actions. Be cautious of your actions, because they may become a habit. And the part of yourself, be careful about your own character, because it will become your fate. Never again may not become an empty phrase. Never again cannot remain a phrase without character. I, Chaya, say Auschwitz still lives and breathes in me today. She does not say, I remember. She does not say, it happened once upon a time. No, she says, no, it still lives, it still breathes, it's still here. And now it is now up to us that we together keep this memory alive and draw conclusions for the future. We owe this to the victims, to their descendants, but also we owe this to the generations to come. I thank you. Thank you, Minister. I would like to give the floor to Her Excellency, Ms. Isabella Bero Amadei, President of the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe. Her Excellency is also the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Cooperation of the Principality of Monaco. Ladies and gentlemen, dear survivors, I would like to welcome everyone according to your dignity and rank. It is with great seriousness, but also with great emotions that we are looking at Auschwitz-Birkenau, that has become a universal symbol of one of the largest tragedy in the history of humanity. It is here that men, women, children were deprived of their dignity, identity, and deprived of their lives. They fell victims to the ideology based on the negation of the other person, based on hatred. One might think, which way would dehumanization and intolerance and indifference lead in a situation when fundamental rights and dignities are violated, when institutions that were supposed to protect them are falling apart? And out of this tragedy, the will was born, the will to create and to build Europe built on peace, dignity, and the rule of law. The establishment of the Council of Europe more than 60 years ago shows this conviction. And it is possible only then when the fundamental rights of every person are guaranteed. The Principality of Monaco is currently holding presidency in the Council of Ministers of the Council of Europe, and therefore I have this honor to take part in this ceremony. I would like to reaffirm the full commitment of 46 member states in upkeeping the memory of the Holocaust, so that this memory is present with this and future generations. It is today that we honor the memory of Roma and Sinti, the victims of Holocaust, of the genocide that they suffered from on the night from the 2nd into the 3rd of August 1944. More than 4,000 people were murdered during the liquidation of the Zigeunerlager. They joined hundreds of thousands of those who were killed in Europe just because they were born as Roma or Sinti. Their memory is fully as a part of European identity and consciousness, and we need to recognize this. We need to pass on this knowledge. This is our moral duty as holding memory is not only about that. We need to be vigilant against all forms of racism, hatred, discrimination, and against the banalization of exclusion, so that this history never repeats. And that is why the Council of Europe acts for the benefit of education about the Holocaust. We are fighting denialism. We are also holding dialogue with the interested communities. So that is to make sure that fighting against the anti-Gypsyism becomes part of our mission. Today, there are all too many Roma and Sinti who suffer from discrimination. That is not getting any lower, and the presidency of the Principality of Monaco has placed the matter of dignity, dialogue, and the protection of fundamental values in the heart of its activities. Currently, we see the reborn of hate speech and falsification of history, and therefore it is our common duty to reaffirm the values that form the foundation for our democracy. Memory is the condition for peace. Memory is our duty with regard to future generations who have not suffered from the war, but we need to speak about the values that form our continent. Auschwitz-Birkenau is the place of silence. Silence is the lesson, but oblivion must be discarded. This is the place of memory, and this memory must be transferred to future generations so that there is hatred no more. Our activity here and our duty is to pay tribute to the victims, and we must do it so as to uphold their memory. I thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency. I now would like to give the floor to Mr. Szymon Hołownia, the Deputy Marshal of the Sejm of the Republic of Poland. Ladies and gentlemen, a politician is someone who, as in principle, doesn't have any problems with speaking, but in a place like this, politicians also are facing a very different choice to speak. And we must speak, as every single word spoken here, the word heard, is the word of declaration and commitment. And those are the words of commitments with regard to the today and tomorrow, and that is the mandate assumed by us as a result of elections. But our duty here is to fall silent here, because this place cannot be described in words, cannot be understood, cannot be comprehended in words, and the natural reflex of a person is just to walk across this place of ruin, but not to speak, not to talk, but to listen to the voices of all those who fell silent here, those who were treated with cyanide hydrogen in the gas chambers, were in the place where everyone was killed. Men, women, elderly children. I am a representative of the Polish Parliament, and I'm very happy that Petra Bayer is a representative of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe is here with us today, because we politicians must reaffirm our commitment on behalf of our voters, on behalf of our democratic institutions. In 2011, as it was already mentioned before, the Parliament of the Republic of Poland, Lower House, the Sejm, proclaimed the 2nd of August the Day of Remembrance of Roma and Sinti, and this is the commitment that is upheld by the Parliament of the Republic of Poland and by the European Parliament. That is our commitment to memory. This is our commitment to remember about this place, that in the concept of those who were then rulers here was supposed to be a black hole in which people would disappear forever without any trace, would be gone forever. And the outlines of the black hole in astrophysics is described as the horizon of events. So this is the horizon of events that was experienced by those who were deported here to Auschwitz. That was their horizon of events. And then there were no events to be anymore for them. That was meant to be the end of their time. But their time is still here, because it is us here who carry forward their lives, the lives that were so brutally taken away from them. It is us here who should carry these words and of memory about millions of killed, of those tens of thousands of Roma and Sinti who were killed during the war. 4,300 Roma and Sinti were killed here, and we need to give them their names back. We need to give their surnames back, their faces, their fates, their stories, their identity, their human autonomy. And why is it so important? Well, that is important because, as you know very well, as was well described here, I was then the Marshal, the Speaker of the Parliament. That was the anniversary of the liberation of the Auschwitz camp. That was a very important event. Marian Turski said the words that he repeated so frequently at the very end of his life. Marian Tursk, the Polish Jew, survivor of the Holocaust, a journalist, a person of great merit, he kept on saying, Auschwitz just not fell off out of the blue. It was not just out of the blue. Hitler won in democratic elections. We need to remember that the parliament later on, the German parliament, became the facade parliament, but Hitler won the elections in a democratic way. There were people, there were millions of them, who actually supported that vision. They said, yes, that's the way forward. And that is today the challenge that we politicians are facing today. We need to ask a question. What is it that we are doing with our electoral victories? How do we achieve electoral victories? And this is the memento of this place for us politicians. And this is what the victims of such places like this tell us. You must remember. You must remember what is it that you want to build your hope on. If you carry hope to people, because if you are going to feed those hopes with fear, hatred, frenzy, negative fuel, then it shall never bear good fruit. Look at this perfidy that was already mentioned today. What perfidy was used by the German occupying force, how they were reversing the meaning of the words. Who gave the order to liquidate this camp? The main security office. Security. What is that security all about? About killing and suffocating innocent children? Was that security? They were not saying in their documents that they are going to murder people. It was the so-called special treatment given to the people going to the gas chambers. They had really polite, nice, bureaucratic terms for everything and justification. Because we have the right to fear if they pose a threat, as they were saying. The anti-Semites in Poland before the war, they were writing, it's not the problem of the walls that we have to get rid of them. There is this craziness in words, actions and thoughts. That policy is fed on the worst emotions that could possibly found. This is what leads to this type of calamity. And this is where we need to ask a question. And we also in the Polish parliament. And you all in your parliaments and in your governments, you should also, here we have the representatives of the Czech parliament, of the Hungarian parliament, there are representatives, the representatives of Germany and Parliament of Europe. It is a truly international community.
We need to ask ourselves a question. In this day and age, in this reality, when we take decisions about other people's fates, how often are certain frontiers crossed? I might be anxious or afraid, and that gives me the right to aggression, and when I'm aggressive, it gives me a right to move on and to be even more aggressive, and that all leads to Auschwitz. So, there is this cry that Auschwitz never happens again. But let us remember, Auschwitz did not fall from heaven, because the fate of future sites like this one, is in our hands. Because certain things need to be a part of our DNA. We need to take our loved ones, our children, grandchildren, bring them here. Why? Because the perpetrators wanted this place to become a black hole. They wanted human lives to be consumed by Black Death. And the best recipe to death is life. There is no better, well, recipe is not a good word. There is no other path. Because we are talking about this ocean of death, this black hole. The best thing you can do with the black hole is to fill it with life. And to do that, you have to bring in here your children and meet the spirits, the ghosts of the children that would like to play with our children. We need to listen to a story told by an elderly woman, and she knows that her days are numbered, and we need to listen to her. We need to be here with them, stay with them. We need to sit down with them. We need to take our own life and bear witness to show where we stand. Which path do we choose? Sometimes it's all we can do. At times we cannot reverse the event. Sometimes a wave that is coming is too high because people are overwhelmed by wrong emotions, bad emotions. But irrespectively of who we are, whether we are president or a chairperson or a minister, you can always come here as a person and stand here in silence. And maybe another person will stand next to you, and yet another, and yet another, and yet another. Why am I talking about it? Because I can see what is happening in so many countries in today's Europe. How easily people cross this border and move on into words of hatred. People tend to humiliate. I will simply unleash my emotions. This is when you need to put a stop to it. They do not represent race or a given group. These are individual humans. You are facing a human, a child. Look this person in the eye. Look at their story. Look at a human being. Today we can do more than we think we are capable of. Evil people start to take over when the good ones believe that they are helpless. There is no vacuum in politics. We must be there. Failing that, our message of life is going to be replaced with another message. This place here is a huge commitment to all of us. It's an obligation. And finally, let me tell you that there is this photo you probably all know. The head of this museum is he's Piotr Siwiński, and this country, Poland, is proud of how he does his duty. And in this museum you can see the photos of people who died here. These are all people's lives cut short. And there is this photo from May 44, a transport of Jews from Hungary, taken somewhere here already after the selection took place, minutes before these people are going to perish. There is this small boy who picked up a flower, a yellow one like the ones you see here, and he's giving this flower to his brother. I have small children, many of you have children, grandchildren, and this boy is 2, maybe 3, his older brother is 6, maybe 7. And this is the last thing that this little boy ever did in his life. He picked up a flower from this field of death and he gave it to his own brother so as to light up a smile on his brother's face. And this place where we are is full of such stories. And today, when we lay flowers, when this celebration is over, let us find some time when this ceremony rather is over, let us find some time to be here and to be always on the side of victims. We are always to be with those who are the perpetrators and who do harm. We always are with the ones who are the victims and against those who perpetrate. Always there. Because in the face of the great events, we are all here on the same side. On behalf of the Polish Sejm, I would like to bow my head. In silence, I bow my head before the victims of this Nazi bestiality visited upon those who were staying here forcibly in what was terribly called this family camp. May they find life wherever they are. Thank you very much.
Dziękujemy serdecznie.
Mr. Marshall, thank you very much. May I ask Petra Bayer, representing the Council of Europe Assembly.
Distinguished guests, dear friends, it is my third time that I'm here in Auschwitz-Birkenau, but it's the first time that I'm here in my capacity as President of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. And that gives this visit, for me, a special weight. In June this year, our General Rapporteur combating racism and intolerance, Francesco Verducci, invited me to a seminar in Rome on the occasion of the International Day Countering Hate Speech. There I met Liliane Segre. She is senator for life in Italy, and she is also a Holocaust survivor. As a young Jewish girl, she was held prisoner here in Auschwitz-Birkenau. Liliane told me something that I cannot and that I will not forget. She said that here in Auschwitz, she envied the Roma, Romni, Sinti and Sintice. Why? Because they were allowed to stay here together as family. Parents with children, grandparents with grandchildren, and in this terrible place that felt to her almost like a kindness, like a mercy. Then one night that ended. On the 2nd of August 1944, the Roma and Sinti families here were murdered. All of them. We know 3,400 people in one single night. After that, Liliane told me she envied them not anymore. I share this story because it says something important, I think. Auschwitz did not separate one's people suffering from another's. And neither should we when we remember. The genocide of Roma and Sinti, the Boraimos, the engulfment, das Verschlingern, as the Romani term means, must be remembered clearly, with the same names, with the same grief as every other crime committed here on this ground. And we know that all remembering is not enough. It gives us a duty to act today and tomorrow. And today, Roma and Sinti are still the largest minority in Europe. And in too many countries, they still face discrimination in housing, in schools, in access to justice, in jobs. They are often blamed first and heard last. Anti-Gypsyism did not end in the 20th century. It is still here, sometimes loud, very often quiet, hidden within our institutions. This is why our General Rapporteur on Roma and Sinti issues, Georgios Stamatis, does such an important and passionate work. This work keeps the question of Roma and Sinti at the center of our institution, in the center of our Parliamentary Assembly, and not at its edges. This is why the Council of Europe's Commissioner for Human Rights, Michael O'Flaherty, makes Roma and Sinti rights a priority. An institution built on human dignity cannot look away from one of its largest communities. We still have a long way to go before where someone comes from or how they speak or how they look stops deciding their chances in life. And this is not a distant dream. This is real work. And it belongs to every one of us who holds public office. But I do not want to end on what is still wrong. I'm glad, truly glad, that the Roma community today is active, loud, visible. Young Roma activists, artists, and leaders are claiming their place. They work to boost self-esteem of Romani people and challenge negative stereotypes. They tell their own stories in their own voices. And they are no longer spoken about. They speak for themselves. And this is not a threat to our democracies. This is exactly what strong democracies need. Before I end, I want to return to Liliane Segre. She survived. She chose to spend her life telling her story, so the world would not forget. The Roma and Sinti murdered here did not have that chance. They cannot tell their own story. So today, this place, on this day, we tell their story for them. It will not be only this place and today, it will be every place and every day we will do so. Liliane taught me that the memory only matters if it changes something, how we act tomorrow. So let this day be more than remembrance only. Let it be a promise that we, as Europe's institutions, will not look away, not from discrimination, not from hatred, not from Roma and Sinti communities who are still waiting for the equality they were promised. So let's take today's opportunity to listen, to learn and to act together tomorrow. Und lassen Sie mich auch, lieber Herr Rose, lieber Herr Kwaniowski, zurückkommen auf den Appell, den Sie mir gegeben haben, für den ich mich wirklich sehr, sehr herzlich bedanken möchte, dass sich Ihre Ziele und unsere Ziele in der Parlamentarischen Versammlung des Europarats 100%ig decken. Ich habe auch schon mit unserem Berichterstatter darüber gesprochen, er schreibt gerade.
And we try to pursue this postulate. A report is being drafted on the situation of Roma and Sinti in Europe. Naturally, all that you have heard will become a part of that report. Today, an appeal has been signed. It contains many elements of the work that we have been doing. And I must say that I feel honored. This day will impact politics, and this appeal will mediate in that. This is what these events are for.
Thank you very much.
And now I'd like to give the floor to Mr. Petr Wyszlicki, the president of the board of the Jewish Historic Institute in Poland, as well as the Polin Museum.
Szanowni Państwo,
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, with your permission, I would like to say a few words. I will say something from the depth of my heart, being a Polish Jew, especially in this place. We are meeting here in a place where words always seem to be insufficient. So let me begin then with a fragment of the poem that you know, The Tears of Blood, by the Romani poet Bronisława Weiss-Papusza. No one knows of this. Only the river and the sky listen, and they are weeping over man. These words, calling to mind the oblivion that surrounded the fate of the Roman Sinti, remind us that for many years the world spoke far too rarely of your suffering, and of your Holocaust. I stand before you today as a Polish Jew. I am a Jew. And I could speak of what our fates had in common, of how deeply suffering bound us together, but that would be merely half the truth. I'm here to speak about the memory that for far too many years was not sufficient, and the memory of our victims did not take the same course. After the war, the world learned to speak about the Holocaust of the Jews. There were books written, there were museums and memorials established. Survivors bore witness. However, of the Holocaust of the Roma and Sinti, the world was silent for a long time. That silence was yet another wrong inflicted upon you. And in Judaism, there is this commandment, Zachor, remember. And it applies not only to your own relatives, it is a duty to remember about every single person, and especially to remember those who were meant to be erased from history. And I must admit that we, the Jews, have not always been able to speak loudly enough about the suffering of the Roma and Sinti, the memory of your Holocaust, the memory of the Primus remained all too long at the margins. And if memory is to be fair, and it must be fair, it must encompass everyone, because there are no more important or less important victims. But we must also have the courage to remember about difficult things. Roma and Sinti were persecuted even before the Nuremberg laws. Even earlier than that, their rights and their dignity were taken away from them, and when they were reaching the ghettos and camps, they were not always met with compassion. Among Jews too, there were prejudices and fears, and it shows that a fear may feel superior to another victim, and that is also a part of our joint history. We cannot be silent about that. Today we cannot change anything. We cannot give the victims back their lives. We cannot undo the wrongs and the suffering. There is only one thing we can do. Remember together, not as Jews, not as Roma or Sinti. We remember as humans. For memory is not only about the past. Memory is also about what kind of people we want to be today and tomorrow. So let Papusha's word then never be true again. Let not only the river and sky remember about the tears of the Roma and Sinti, let the world remember them. I must say that this is how I was prepared, but I would like to add the following, and this comes from the depth of my heart, especially after very emotional speech of Speaker Hołownia, for whom I'm very grateful. I must say that we as the Jews, we as the Roma, we as the Sinti, we as minorities, we are we're starting feeling unwell. 2 days ago, I was shocked once I spoke to a group of minorities I'm not going to mention, and that one specific minority, between themselves in the public space, they started speaking in whisper. Why are you speaking in whispers? And they say, because we are afraid. And that is appeal to you, to the politicians, not only from Poland, not only from it's a call upon politicians from all over the world. Do something about it, because if minorities start speaking in whispers, if they start feeling afraid, if they feel fear when looking into the eyes of another, that means, as my friend, my teacher, almost Marian Turski told me, it means that already somewhere there is another Auschwitz being prepared. Do not allow for that, because you manage the nations, and we count on you. I was also asked by the President of the International Auschwitz Council, Professor Marian Stoller, who could not join us today, on his behalf and on his behalf, or on behalf as the Deputy President, to pay tribute to all victims of the Holocaust of the Roma and Sinti. We pay tribute to their memory. We pay tribute to their memory. Thank you. Thank you. I would like to thank everyone for these deeply moving words spoken out here at the moment to the murdered Roma and Sinti at Birkenau. I also would like to thank the survivors for their presence, the representatives of the second and subsequent generations, for it is a promise of remembrance and it is a sign of continuity. I thank all of you for your presence in this special place of memory, for it is an expression of solidarity and an important gesture of respect towards the victims and their descendants. I thank you because it is through moments like this that the memory of the tragedy of the Roma is not forgotten but lives on as a warning, as an obligation, and as an expression of our humanity, and also as a reminder that Auschwitz did not fall out of the blue. It is in this spirit of remembrance, of respect and of community that I invite you to lay the wreaths. We will need a moment to move away the main rostrum. I will step aside so as to have the accompaniment of quiet music, and I will read out the text about the first Lutheran ceremony, and I would ask you to proceed in this order. And I understand that some of you are quite far away from your homes. If you already need to leave the ceremony, please return the headsets. For simultaneous interpretation, there in the back there is a tent, and two beautiful sisters will be collecting headsets from you.
Sorry. I work with people. It's been closed. This is too late. Sorry. Szanowni Państwo, na początek zapraszam.
Ladies and gentlemen, first I would like to ask the organizers to deliverance, Roman Kwiatkowski, President of the Roma Association in Poland, who represents the Association of Roma and the Center for Culture and History of Roma in Auschwitz.
Bardzo proszę drugie.
I would like to ask Romani Rosa, the representative of the Central German Council, to lay the wreaths, and the Roma in Germany to prepare for laying the next wreath. And I would ask to lay the first wreath.
Zapraszam pana
Romani Rosa, Central Council of the German Roma and Sinti. And I would ask the representative state authorities and the parliament to prepare.
Kolejny wieniec
The wreath on behalf of in the name of the President of the Republic of Poland to be laid by Ambassador and Special Envoy of the President of the Republic of Poland, Mr. Berendt.
Zapraszam panie.
Ambassador, Your Excellency.
Proszę,
I ask to provide the representative of the Speaker of the lower house of the Parliament of the same, Mr. Czerzasty.
wieniec w imieniu marszałka Sejmu Włodzimierza Czarzastego.
The wreath of Mr. Czerzasty, the Deputy Speaker of the Sejm, the lower house, and would like to ask Mr. Szymon Hołownia, the Deputy Speaker of the Parliament, to prepare to lay the wreath.
Panie Marszałku.
Mr. Speaker,
Wieniec od Adama.
the wreath on behalf of Małgorzata Kidawa-Błońska, the Speaker of the Senate of the Republic of Poland, to be laid by Mr. Bodnar, representative of the Senate, of the Speaker of the Senate. Senator? I invite Mr. Ryszard Śmiałek, the Voivode of the Małopolskie Voivodeship. Ryszard Śmiałek, the Voivode of Małopolskie, who represents the Prime Minister of the Republic of Poland and represents the Małopolskie region. I invite you to lay the wreath.
O gotowość proszę panie.
Now I ask the Deputy Minister of the Czech Republic to be ready.
Pani Katarzyna
Ms. Katarzyna Pyszatowa, representing Czechia.
Kolejny wieniec.
The next wreath will be laid together by two representatives, including one representing the Ministry of National Education and another representing the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Poland.
Kolejny wieniec złoży pan Michel
Michel Brandt, will lay the next wreath.
Pan Michel Brandt,
Michel Brandt is the parliamentary state secretary and member of the Bundestag representing Germany.
przyszedł czas na
And now, diplomatic missions will have their time to commemorate the victims. May I ask Gretchen Kjörten, Consul General of the United States in Kraków.
Zapraszam panią
May I ask Jade Serrière, a diplomatic representative representing France, to lay her wreath.
pan Omar,
Mr. Omar Czeczek-Katz, Deputy Ambassador of Israel to Poland.
zapraszam panią
Madam Margaret Sekulic, First Secretary and Consul, Deputy Head of Mission at the Consul General of Hungary in Kraków.
Prosimy o składanie wieńców po państwa lewej stronie.
Please lay your wreaths on your left-hand side.
Zapraszam pana
Laszlo Teleki, a Hungarian representative and a public figure representing Hungary.
Zapraszam pana Arnolda Obermayera,
Arnold Obermeier, who represents the Embassy of Austria.
zapraszam przedstawicielkę ambasady.
Now, may I ask the representative of the Embassy of Slovakia to take her opportunity to lay the wreath?
Zapraszam oficjalną delegację.
And now, the official parliamentary delegation of Hungary.
Zapraszam jej ekscelencję Izabelę
Now, Her Excellency Isabel Berro Amadei, Chair of the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe.
Zapraszam Petrę Bajr,
Petra Bayer, President of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe.
zapraszam pan
Mr. Halvard Gorseth, Director of Equality and Human Dignity at the Council of Europe.
pan Peter Drent,
Peter Drenth, thematic spokesperson human rights of the Congress of Local and Regional Authorities of the Council of Europe, representing Council of Europe.
pan Georgios Stamati,
Mr. Georgios Stamatis, General Rapporteur on Roma and Travelers of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe.
proszę o przygotowanie się przedstawicieli instytucji.
May I ask the representatives of church institutions to be ready.
Annę Gideon,
Anne Gideon, Commissioner of the Council of the Evangelical Church in Germany to the Federal Republic of Germany and the European Union.
zapraszam Jego Ekscelencję
His Excellency Bishop Matthias Heinrich, representative of the German Bishops' Conference for the Pastoral Care of Roma, Sinti and related groups.
i sugeruję, byśmy zaczęli.
May I suggest that we start placing the wreaths in another row?
A ja będę zapraszał teraz
And now I'll be asking for representatives of museums and memorial institutions. May I ask very warmly Dr. Piotr Cywiński to take his turn. He's the director of the Auschwitz-Birkenau State Museum in Oświęcim. He'll be joined by Andrzej Kocorzyk, Rafał Pióro and Anna Skrzypińska, deputy directors of said museum.
Dobrze. Zapraszam panią Michaelę
Michaela Kischler, Secretary General of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance.
Zapraszam panią Alinę Skibińską.
Alina Skibińska, representing Sarah Bloomfield, representing the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum.
Zapraszam przedstawicieli Muzeum Kultury Romskiej w Brnie.
Now, the representatives of the Museum of Romani Culture in Brno.
Mirosław Zubaj,
Mirosław Zubaj, Karel Landori and Kristina Bichariowa.
zapraszam panią dr Halinę Postek,
Dr. Halina Postek, Head of the Education Department and Press Officer, and Katarzyna Brzezińska, Head of the Communications Department, representing the Warsaw Ghetto Museum.
zapraszam panią Cecylię Rado,
Ms. Cecilia Radoń, Deputy Director of the Kraków branch of the Institute of National Remembrance.
zapraszam pana
Adam Bartosz, and the persons who accompany him. Adam Bartosz represents the Museum of the Tarnów region. Now, regional and local authorities, parliamentarians, and public personas. I'll be reading out the list. You may approach and lay your flowers on both sides.
parliamentarians and public figures. You can lay 2 wreaths at the same time on the left-hand side and the right-hand side. Pani Beata Bisli, OSCE. Dr Jakub Przewodnik,
Head of the Field Office of the Marshal's Office of the Małopolska Województwie in Oświęcim. He is laying a wreath on behalf of Iwona Gipas and is representing the Marshal's Office of the Małopolska region.
zapraszam panią Sylwię Żak-Bieś,
Sylwia Żak-Biesik, a councillor of the Małopolska region. The councillor represents the Regional Assembly of the Małopolska region. Krzysztof Kania, the Deputy Mayor of Oświęcim, representing said city.
zapraszam panią
Teresa Jankowska, Deputy Starostat of Oświęcim, representing the Oświęcim County. Robert Dziuba, the Secretary of the Oświęcim Municipality, representing said municipality.
zapraszam
Ms. Barbara Grupka, Deputy Head of the Promotion Division at the City of Oświęcim. Ewelina Pytel, the Plenipotentiary of the Mayor of the City of Kraków, representing the City of Kraków.
zapraszam pana Jerzego
Jerzy Federowicz, a Senator of the Republic of Poland, representing the Senate of the Republic of Poland. Jiří Bartak, member of the Chamber of Deputies of the Parliament of the Czech Republic. Daria Gosek-Popiołek, a Polish MP.
zapraszam pan
Tomasz Marek, an attorney at law. Harangos, a Roma Educational Association. Alicja Bartoś, representing the Oświęcim Institute for Human Rights. Marek Szafrański, a journalist of the Polish Press Agency. Zuzanna Herzberg, a Polish Jewish social activist. Dr. Anna Mirga-Kruszelnicka, a Roma social activist. Father Dariusz Chrostowski, a director of the Center for Dialogue and Prayer in Oświęcim. Aleksandra Dobner and Joanna Paszek, visual artists and painters. Eliza Mui, a musician, a violinist, and a vocalist. Konrad Nulken, a participant of our ceremony, representing Poland and the international community.
And the second and third generations from Norway and other countries. Czas na delegacje międzynarodowe i potomków ocalałych. Pan Rudolf Murka wraz
Rudolf Murka, together with his wife, Wiktoria Murkowa, a descendant of a Holocaust survivor, representing the Czech Republic.
Leo
Gabrielsen, Amanda Skjön, and Julian Finnbraten Steinsrud, members of the delegation that represents Norway. May I ask the grandchildren and great-grandchildren of a Holocaust survivor, Miloš Karoli. As well as the representatives of Romano Care, the Romani House.
Zapraszam organizacje pozarządowe i międzynarodowe, non-governmental and international organizations. Pan
Mr. Frank Bradler, leader of the group, together with the delegation that represents organizations from Moldova and Germany. Natalie Klee, leader and members of the delegation representing the Czech organization Slovo 21.
Zapraszam
I invite the representatives of the Czech civil society and of artistic circles.
Zapraszam panią
Ivana Abrias, a representative of the Tono Association. And all those who have not been listed are kindly requested to approach and to lay the wreaths.
has now the time and opportunity to lay down their wreaths. Szanowni Państwo,
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to kindly ask you to return the headsets for simultaneous interpretation. You could return the headsets to the volunteers that shall be waiting for you on the exit to this tent and the other tent behind.
either where you collected them from, it's the tent at the back, or please deliver them to the volunteers. Dziękujemy bardzo
Thank you very much, and by this we conclude today's ceremony. I would like to thank City Valentin and the performers of it. I would like to thank Lena Schubert. This is the third and the fourth generation. I also would like to thank the string quartet accompanying them.
Szanowni Państwo, oficjalna część ceremonii
By this we conclude the official ceremony, and I would ask you to lay your wreaths in your private capacity. Let us honor their memory.